Hello, welcome to another episode of Field of Screams. Today we are going to be talking about a movie called The Tunnel. This Australian found footage film, directed by Carlo Ledesma, takes place in abandoned underground train tunnels underneath Sydney, Australia, which provides a very similar creepy setting to the movie As Above, So Below, which actually came out 3 years after the movie The Tunnel. This movie won an award for an innovative online campaign. How they won this award was the film was distributed and promoted legally via BitTorrent, which is an internet downloading platform which exposed the film to tens of millions of people for free. Speaking of free, this movie is available on Tubi, which is an app that you can download and you can watch movies for free. If you are a horror fan and you do not have Tubi, you are doing yourself a disservice. I highly recommend you download it. This film is a found footage film within a mockumentary. We follow around 4 different characters. Natasha, who is a reporter. Peter, who works in the news organization that Natasha also works in. Steven is a camera operator. And a guy named Tangles is the audio engineer. The mockumentary bit of the film, it gives us the why as to why our main characters are going down into this tunnel to try to capture this story. It gives a little bit of background. The background that we're given is the government of New South Wales announces a plan to recycle millions of liters of trapped water in a network of abandoned train tunnels beneath the heart of Sydney. They promote this plan and everyone's really excited about it. There's a big drought going on. They're running short of water. One of the problems they suggest that they would have with doing this project is there are a lot of homeless people that live in the tunnel. So we're seeing it kind of play out via like a news channel. We're seeing the president or the leader talking about how they're going to execute this plan. We see people going down into the tunnel. They are trying to devise a plan to get the homeless out of the tunnel so that they can execute this. And then all of a sudden the government goes silent in the plan to evacuate the homeless and recycle the water. Just, you hear no word of it. Then there's news reports of homeless people going missing in the tunnel, which leads to one of our main characters, Natasha. She really pursues this project of they need to get down into this tunnel to see what's really going on. We get a few bits of scenes to which we witness the dynamics between the characters. There is a bit of conflict a little bit between Natasha and Peter. Both are extremely driven characters. They like to have things their way, so usually when they're on the same project, they can butt heads a little bit. We don't see it too much in this movie, but it's just kind of giving us some background information of the characters. Steven and Tangles, they're just best buds in this film. They joke around a lot. They're a little less serious than Natasha and Peter, though when they are doing work, they say they get down to business and they take everything 100% seriously, and Natasha and Peter also back this up in interviews. One more thing before I dive into spoiler territory. Everything I said so far isn't really spoiler. I mean, if you're watching a movie called The Tunnel, I think you know they're going to go inside a tunnel. So, but one thing I'd like to say is when they go inside the tunnel, again, it is very, if you like the movie As Above, So Below, I think you might like this movie. It's a very claustrophobic atmosphere. There's a lot of like homeless shelters that were built around air raid shelters down in these tunnels. So it's kind of like historic tunnels as well as the train station tunnels. It just kind of gave me similar vibes to the catacombs. So if you were a fan of As Above, So Below, or if this just sounds interesting to you and you want to watch the movie without hearing me talk about it, you can pause this and go check it out on Tubi or wherever else you find it. For those that have already seen it and they just want me to continue on to spoilers, here we go. The first thing I want to say about this film is the creature design is just awesome. They play it really well in the shadows. I don't even know how I would identify this creature. That's kind of a flesh eating, demonic, mutated person that you don't really get a good glimpse of, which is a good thing, but they do just enough to keep you on the edge of your seat. There is one scene to which the security guard that goes down into the tunnel and is about to guide them out, and this flesh eating demon grabs him and throws him in the water. When our main characters come across him, he doesn't have eyes, he's just kind of floating in the water, and then in the shadows, this thing just creeps out slowly and twists his head all the way around to where it snaps his neck, and then I think it bites him. Just a really scary scene, really great. The creature runs around in the tunnels like effortlessly, almost like it defies gravity to some extent. There's a scene to where it grabs Steven, or was it Peter? I can't remember. It grabs someone, but they turn around and they flash their light on the creature, and you see it running in the shadows, but it runs in just a very odd and unhuman way. Very cool. I really like the creature in this film. I talked about the atmosphere in the beginning. The atmosphere was really good. I like the characters. Natasha, she's very driven, and by the end of the film, we see her kind of overcome with guilt because it was her idea to go in the tunnel, and she took a lot of back ways to get inside. They didn't even let their boss know, which Peter was furious about. They care about the other characters. When one goes missing, they actually try to recover them. That's kind of nice to see. A lot of times in scary movies, when someone's grabbed, they just try to get out, which might be the smart thing to do. But I mean, I guess when you're trapped in a tunnel, you might as well try to keep the group together. When Tangles goes missing, there's one character says the dumb thing that's always said in a scary movie: "Hey, do you think we should split up and look for him?" And thankfully, it's shut down really quickly. They're like, "No, we're not splitting up. Like, that's how we're all going to get killed. We need to stick together. It's going to increase our chances of surviving." And of course, that person is correct. It's like that scene in Cabin in the Woods where they're all sticking together and then they get gassed or drugged. And two all the characters are like, "Yeah, we should just split up." And there's the one stoner character who's just like, "What? Why? Why would we do that?" It's in every scary movie. It always happens. I've never seen a scary movie to where I'm sitting here and I'm like, man, they should have just split up and they would have been fine. Actually, if you can think of a certain movie, scary movie, to where the characters should have split up and they would have been better off, comment it down below or send me a message of it, because I would like to see an instance of where this actually happened, because I don't think there is one. I can't think of one movie. So yeah, that gets shut down and we don't have to deal with that stupidity in the movie. So I've talked about some good things. There's some things I want to kind of nitpick here. I talked about the film being a mockumentary. In the beginning, it serves a very good purpose, but the mockumentary, it kind of carries over into the found footage film. And one problem I had with this is we keep seeing interviews with Natasha and Steven, and not Tangles and Peter. So to me, that indicates that those two aren't going to make it. So about midway through the film, I'm sitting here and I'm like, oh, okay. Well, I know Natasha's going to make it and Steven's going to make it. I'm guessing Tangles and Peter are going to end up victims, and what do you know? So it kind of gives it away as the mockumentary continues. Personally, I thought they should have used the mockumentary bits in the beginning and in the end, because they use the mockumentary bits in the end to kind of show that Natasha has guilt. Steven has some dialogue about his friend Peter dying. It's a nice little touch. It ends on a kind of a gloomy note, even though two of the characters survive. But if they would have cut off the mockumentary bits in the middle of the film, we would have been watching the found footage bit, and I really don't think I would have recalled and said, wait a minute, I don't think Tangles had that many interviews in the beginning of the film. I wouldn't have questioned it. I started to question it as we were getting in the middle, and I'm noticing two of our four main characters are doing interview bits, and the other two aren't. So if they would have took it away in the middle of the film, I think it wouldn't have gave away who lives and who dies. I know they did it to kind of just give the people's thoughts of being in the tunnel, a little inside the character. But I mean, I don't think it was really necessary. Another thing I want to nitpick is Peter's death. I know it's supposed to be this big sad moment. They drag him out of the tunnel, they get him there, and he just dies on the floor. I thought it would have been a little cooler if maybe they're getting him out of the tunnel, we're seeing it via camera, and as they're pulling him out, the creature does one last scare and pulls him back down into the tunnel. I think that was kind of a creative choice they decided to go with because they kind of had this message of you can't trust the government. The government kind of had a hand in it. Steven has some dialogue about how the paramedics just kind of gave up on him and left Peter's body laying there and he was in shock. But I think you could have spread that message without the dialogue of the paramedics giving up on him. I mean, even with the government having a hand in this tunnel project in Australia, I don't think the paramedics would be behind the whole project or trying to cover it up. They already had the bit of the police saying even though they had it all filmed, it was inconclusive evidence and they were still looking for tangles and the case was just left open. They could have just left it at that angle if they wanted to leave the little bit of not trusting the government in. I mean, let's face it, after seeing the death of that security guard, that really scary scene in the dark with that creature slowly creeping behind him, very slow scene, and then we get Peter's death, which is just internal bleeding, and then that's all we get. It's like, oh, that's kind of lame. I don't know, I didn't like that. Overall, I thought the film was pretty fun. Is it the best found footage movie I've ever seen? No, but it's still a pretty fun one. I think it's worth a watch, especially if you like films that are in tunnels with found footage. I mean, I've mentioned As Above, So Below twice, now 3 times, but it just strikes me as a movie in the same vein. Bloody Disgusting did list this film as one of the 13 scariest mockumentary movies ever made. It has gotten some critical acclaim in Australia. The film has received a lot of acclaim in the festival circuit. It's definitely worth a watch. Turn off the lights, put on headphones, and check it out. Well, I think that wraps up my review of the movie The Tunnel. For those who are still listening, thank you for tuning in. Feel free to subscribe so you can listen to the next episode. Follow Feel the Screams podcast on social media. Send me a message if there's a film you're interested in me in doing. I'm always open to suggestions. And until next time.